The opinions expressed are those of the host. The material is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute investment advice, and it is not intended as an endorsement for any specific investment. Visit crestmontpw.com for more details.
Welcome to the Ascent. This is Sam McGee, CEO and owner of Crestmont Private Wealth. We have offices in Houston, Texas at One Riverway and Boerne, Texas at 604 South Main. And stop by. If you happen to be a high net worth family, we define that as $1 million in liquidity and up, or $250,000 in adjusted gross income and up. Those are the kind of clients that we serve. Now, I have a very special guest today in the studio, Suzanne Page, good friend. She is a real estate agent with Phyllis Browning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So obviously, I know you pretty well, and you're an Aggie, and been able to, watch your kids grow up in the district. But tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I have lived here in Boerne since 2009. Absolutely fell in love with it. Came to San Antonio after A&M in 2002 and made my way out here and thrilled. Raised my children here, have run graduate that is now a sophomore at A&M, have an 8th grade daughter here in the public school district at North, and could not be happier. And I know it's said over and over in such a cliche, but the people, can't say enough about it.
I totally agree. We moved here in 2021, and yeah, the town definitely has a heartbeat. There's no doubt about it. And I think that this is a really timely show. So at the time of airing of this is going to be February 28th. So grass is starting to sprout up into lawns, starting to get a little warm. There's just activity happening all over the place. The market days are getting attended, but it's also real estate. Real estate starts heating up. So tell us a little bit about what you do at Phyllis Browning, and then we'll talk a little bit about the real estate market.
You bet. So I am on the residential side at Phyllis Browning here. Actually, our office, as you know, is pretty much right across from yours, another adorable building. So I get to look out of our adorable building over to yours, and love what y'all are about to do with that space. But so I work in the residential real estate space there. I have for 6 years now. I got in it in 2020 when things were wild and crazy and fast. And so now I'm getting to see the other side of things, which is fun to really have experience on all sides of it. And so I absolutely love it. Have great partners, of course, in the land and ranch side and the commercial side. I've done a little bit of those there, but primarily I'm in residential at this moment.
Excellent. So obviously, there's a lot of agents in town, and I really appreciate you coming on the show just to provide some insights, some statistics. And there's great agents out there. I mean, I will say, and I think you've said this before, that making sure the personality fits right, the right firm for the right person is always really important. Talk a little bit about that. Like, what do you think is important for someone to look for in an agent relationship?
Yes. So one of the first things that surprised me that I learned when getting into real estate is how much of a relational experience it is, at least on the residential side. So my very first closing, I look over and this big old burly blue collar construction man tears up because he saw his dream come true of owning land.
That's
and
awesome.
At that moment, I was like, I am hooked.
That's awesome.
So I really have seen that you really get to walk alongside of people in typically a very big moment in their life. There's usually a big catalyst behind residential real estate, whether it be a marriage or a baby or their empty nesters, whether it's a really high or a really low, it's typically some kind of dream or big movement in life. So getting that moment, if you get really close to clients typically during those few months of walking through it, and I absolutely love that aspect. So to get back to your question directly, I just love the relationship. So therefore, I think it's so ideal. Yes, there's a wide range, and I think it's wonderful between not only brokerages, but also real estate agents. And so that's wonderful because I think everybody really needs to find their fit and the type of brokerage they want to work with and that type of agent, so they're comfortable walking through that very kind of can be personal experience together.
Sure. So when we take a look at things happening with that life event that you just described at Crestmont, I've got to give a little plug on us too. So that is probably one of the biggest things that people come in to talk about when they're a client is, hey, what if we bought this second home? What if we bought that ranch? What if we sold the ranch? What if we did this? And honestly, like I even had that over the weekend. I had a client that I did a little VIP for him over the weekend and, was helping him out, thinking through something. And typically we will bring clients in to show them visually, the husband, the wife, exactly what they can afford, their probability of success, what they can't afford before they go kind of pull the trigger, so to speak. So just a little bit about Crestmont on there. Super, super important. And I couldn't agree with you more. The relationship is so important. Very similar businesses, actually. Dealing with someone's home is very personal. Dealing with somebody's money is very personal. So completely agree with that.
A lot of crossover.
Totally. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about kind of what's going on in Kendall County. Now, if you're listening to this in Harris County or you're in Virginia or Miami Beach or wherever you are, obviously real estate is local, but we're talking about Kendall County. So maybe give us a few stats of what's going on.
You bet. So what we're seeing right here in Kendall County in the single residential family home sector is our average price per square feet is currently $252. That's down about 4% from this time last year. Our month supply right now is down about 9% at 5 months. So a perfectly balanced market would be at that 6 month mark. And so we are ever so slightly a seller's market, which surprises a lot of people, but we are more on the seller side versus a year or two ago. I know, right. And our average days on market here, when I got in the business, like I said, it was about 5 days. No, not really.
Or like 2 minutes?
About 2 minutes at some time. No, it was closer to a month, but now we're at 128, which is a little over 4.5 months. And that is actually up 26% from a year ago. So things were going a little bit faster a year ago. They've definitely slowed down as far as getting the house off the market, but it is still a seller's market. So here in Kendall County, the average single family residential home sold at $773,000.
Wow.
$773,000 last year, which is up from a year ago. So while we've had a dip compared to 4 years ago, we are seeing things back on the upswing.
Well, and you single-handedly explained why we have an office in Boerne. If the average price is nearly $750,000,
right?
That is one of the reasons we have an office here. There's definitely complex wealth needs, and we help people with that at Crestmont Private Wealth. So let's talk about that experience that you mentioned earlier from 2020, COVID, people with masks, all sorts of protocols, going into homes, and how that all looked. Let's start with that. So even the bizarre stuff, please share, because I think a lot of people that are getting into the market now, they're new home buyers, probably forgot what that was like. And let's just take a trip down memory lane real quick.
Probably for good reason. That might have been a trauma response.
Yeah, no doubt.
Let's forget all that oddity happened. But yes, it was just, as like so much other, everything just came to a screeching halt there for a moment. We were kind of assessing and looking into everything and just getting our bearings and how we were going to proceed with things. So the open houses absolutely stopped. We marketed very differently. After a month or so, we were starting to do showings again, but they were just so different. And it's not abnormal for us to have shoe covers, but it was to add on the gloves and to add on the masks and to add on, absolutely don't touch everything, Purell in every single room. It was a very different experience. And for a lot of people that felt extremely uncomfortable, as y'all have heard, they were buying things literally sight unseen.
Oh my gosh.
And so on the other side, the financial side of things, people were 100% okay with paying wildly overpriced.
Yeah.
So it's great even for us to remember now that humans, if they feel like they're going to lose something or almost the fear of loss, I guess, FOMO, if you will. Yeah. They have no problem in paying over. And that showed in human characteristics at that time very much. So yes, one listing that went $100,000 over, we had, we would look up and have 25 offers. It was absolutely wild. And so that was the hardest part, was sifting through and making decisions on that end. And then when that came to a halt pretty sharply about 18 months ago, we all of a sudden that difficulty went away, and we had to remind ourselves, okay, how do we market besides simply putting it into MLS? And so it shifts as anything does. But those just really sharp shifts.
Yeah. And what I like is now, I mean, some of the statistics that you listed, they seem healthier, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Right.
It is truly a healthier market for buyers and sellers. Buyers have a moment to take a breath and make a decision. Sellers have the opportunity to make a decision as well and to price things well, and they have time to actually move and get things in line for themselves on their side. So 100% healthier for everyone.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to what we talk about on the show all the time about kind of staying between the lines of fear and greed. When you're in a crisis, like a housing crisis, a financial crisis, what happens to the brain? It wants to sell something and unload it and get rid of the pain. But when then there's a frenzy, kind of like in 2020 when interest rates were in the twos, yeah, it was the fear of missing out, and people were freaking out and like waiving appraisals and doing kind of really foolish things, right?
Wild.
Really wild. I mean, that's insane. And so here we are, and I think that tell me if I'm right here, but it seems like buyers and sellers have finally digested that we're not going to go back to 2% rates, or at least not in the foreseeable future. That's for sure. Yeah. Right? It seems like the people are being normal again. Is that fair?
Absolutely. We are getting back to normal. Humans are not known to make great decisions under pressure or within fear. So we are, as that has lifted a bit, we are making much better decisions. I think the rose-colored glasses of holding on to those 2%, they're finally coming off. We're realizing, like, if you take a step back and look historically, our rates are actually phenomenal. We're not in the 18% as we were in the 80s. We're not, nothing crazy like that. 6% is actually outstanding historically. And so, and I have to remind people, if we end up in that 2%, first of all, likely there's a crisis going on.
That's right, which is not good.
Which is not good. And it's not good nationally for us. And there's a lot of negative financial, effects of that overall. So if we're in that 2%, something's really wrong. But if we are, you can refi.
That's right.
And at least you've locked in the purchase price of your home, and you're not in a rental that's going to continuously go up.
Yeah, that makes sense. We talked about this a few episodes ago, where adult children are staying in their parents' homes longer. And on the surface, it sounds like, oh, that's a terrible thing, because that means they're, quote unquote, lazy generation. But honestly, what I've been seeing is more people are doing that because of home affordability being so hard, and they're trying to save money. And so to close, because we're getting up near the end of the show, what would you tell a younger person who's looking to save for their first home, a new home buyer? What are maybe like 2 or 3 tips that you would tell them if they're just trying to get out and they're exploring the option of a home ownership?
Yes. So first of all, you're spot on. This last month in January, the annual NAR report came out, and it is the highest first-time buyer age ever in our country,
wow,
which is 40 years old, which just absolutely broke my heart.
Midlife.
Right. Yes, absolutely broke my heart. And people are staying longer in their homes than ever. So historically, we were staying in our homes about 7 years, and now it's up to 10 years. So all of those numbers are creeping up, which is so sad. So there definitely needs to be something that helps us with our exorbitant home prices right now. Do I know the answer to that? Me having those children at the beginning, starting into that time of their lives, my sophomore son, I'm just advising him to obviously live so financially responsible. I heard the quote once that Americans often go into debt one latte at a time, and to think of every purchase and every money decision with any time you have money, are you going to use it to increase your income or your financial ability to one day purchase a home or retire or whatever it may be, or are you just looking to spend it? And so I just really focus on those young kids just doing everything they can to live so disciplined so that they can put everything they can in towards that home ownership, because it's such a key part to your financial wealth overall. And it is one of those things that will widely vary if your monthly expenditures if you don't get it under control. Another thing is there are so many outstanding programs. There are incredible lenders out there, and there are an enormous amount, and they also specialize. Some specialize with first-time home buyers, and they often have programs that aren't advertised very much but are wonderful. So don't ever just think you can't do it, but actually talk to one. Say, what programs are currently out there for me, and what do I need to prep so that I can be ready in 1 to 5 years from now? Excellent.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'll close on this. If you're listening to this and you don't quite have the capital to put down on a house, and you are part of a wealthy family, there are strategies for wealth transfer. That is something we do at Crestmont Private Wealth very routinely, is helping the family think through how to transition wealth free from federal income tax, so that way the second generation or the third generation has an affordable housing situation where they can make that investment. So if you're listening to this and you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us at crestmontpw.com. And obviously you can find Suzanne Page at the Phyllis Browning location here in Boerne. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great weekend, and God bless.